One of the other things you're going to want to include in your final paper is a figure or a table. So tables are things that present numerical or textual information in columns and rows. A figure kind of encompasses any other visual element, like a chart or a graph, some of the things we used on our infographics, an illustration, a photograph, and these can be helpful to an argumentative paper because they add a visual element to your argument. Some data is really easier to understand when you see it visually, but you do want to make sure that whatever figure or table you're including in your paper does add something to your argument. Don't just throw something in there to meet that requirement. Make sure it's adding something to the point you're trying to make. So of course, APA has specific formatting rules for what these need to look like when they go in your paper. Everyone must have one figure or table in their paper, so just one in one spot in your essay. This can come in the beginning, in the middle, closer to the end, wherever you want to have it, but it does need to be in the body of your essay somewhere. You can create one on your own using data from one of your sources, or you can use one from an existing source already. If none of your research sources have good graphics, either data, charts, tables, to use, you can then obviously do a Google search, a Google Images search, but don't just pick the first thing that pops up. Again, find a chart that's actually going to add to your argument, add to your persuasive techniques. If you find something on Google that looks good, make sure though that you can go back and check and see if it's a reliable source. So if it's like a Pinterest chart, make sure you can go back to the original source that Pinterest got it from and okay, this is from, CNN, or this is from Pew Research, or this is from Statista. Statista has a lot of good graphs and charts and tables and visual representations of data. And again, some of the research sources you already have might have good charts and tables in them already, so look through those first and see if you already have something in what you've researched already. And if you do end up using a new source to get a chart or table or a figure, make sure that you do have a references entry for that as one of your sources on your references page. Each figure or table has a call out in the text of the essay, a number, a title, and a note. So the call out is what you write in your paragraph and it tells the reader that there is a table coming up, and it usually will explain to the readers what information is going to be in that table or figure. And you want to say something like, Table 1 shows the voter participation from the last 10 presidential elections. Or as Figure 3 highlights, student debt has increased at an alarming rate over the past 5 years. And then you might kind of then talk about that idea, talk about that topic a little bit, and then the table or figure would come later in your paper. And we'll talk about placement in a few slides. Numbers are just going to be chronological. So for you guys, it's either going to be Table 1 or Figure 1, because you're only going to have one table or figure. In future papers, as you get further into your studies, you might have multiple ones. Then you'd have, obviously, Table 1 would be number 1, Table 2 would be number 2, and so on and so forth. And then when you actually go to put your table into the document or your figure, you will start off by putting Table 1 or Figure 1, and that will be bolded and left aligned. And again, I'm going to show you guys some examples of this. The title should be brief, but also clearly explain what the figure or table is showing. So something like student debt would be too vague, but something like that second example would be a little bit too much information. So something just right would be that third one. And the title is going to be left aligned underneath the number of the table or figure. It's going to be italicized and in title case. And then there are several different ways of writing notes in APA. We're just going to be using the general note, which really refers to and explains the table as a whole. It usually includes the original source of the table or figure to give credit to the original author. That's going to go on the line underneath the table or figure. The word note is going to be italicized and followed by a period. So for you guys, I want your note to kind of focus on the significance of the figure or table, mention really briefly why it's important, kind of connect it back to your argument potentially. In a more formal APA paper, the note might be talking about like statistical data, or kind of having some explanation about the statistical processes used to gather the data. We're not going to focus on that because that's sort of, again, a different level than what we're trying to accomplish with this paper. There'll be a small difference in your note depending on whether you made the chart or figure yourself or if you used a table or figure from a source. So if you are kind of copying and pasting a figure directly from a source, then you'd want to have here my note, italicized period. Student debt varies dramatically by type of student, but non-traditional students face the heaviest financial burden after attending a four-year institution. So my note is drawing attention to my particular topic, and then because let's say I took this chart or table directly from a source, I would just put the word from, and I start with the title. I move on with the authors. So you see the order is a little bit different than a reference entry. I have the year, the name of that journal, volume number, issue number, the page it came from, and then the DOI link for it. So again, it looks a little different than the reference entry. Let's say you created your own figure or table though using data from a source. The only difference is then that you're going to put adapted from instead of the word from. And then again, I've started with the title, include the author, year, name of the website, because again, this is a little bit different. This is from a different source, and then I include my URL. When it comes to placing your figure or table, it should come after the paragraph where it's mentioned. So if you mention in paragraph 4 about table 1, then table 1 needs to come after the end of paragraph 4. It should take up about half a page or less. If your note makes it a little bit longer than half a page, that's fine, but I don't want this to be like one full page of your paper. And make sure the figure or table itself is left aligned. And then you can follow this link to see 2 examples. So as you can see, I've got example 1 for a table. So this is one of my body paragraphs, and then here I very clearly have my call out. Table 1 summarizes the results of those surveys. I scroll down, okay, my paragraph is done. I've got table 1 bolded and left aligned. I've got the title I've given the table, Winter Bee Loss Surveys in the United States from 2006 to 2012. I've got the figure, and in this case, this is one I created from data from a source. I've got my note also left aligned. I've got my explanation in my note here, and then I've got adapted from, and then I give credit to the original source. Example 2 is for a figure. So again, I've got a body paragraph here for one of my students. Then she has the call out here. Figure 1 displays the urgency of Puerto Rico's power situation. And then we go down at the end of the paragraph, we've got figure 1 bolded, title, satellite images of Puerto Rico before and after Hurricane Maria. I have those pictures, and I've got my note here. These images highlight the extreme loss of electricity experienced by the country of Puerto Rico in the wake of Hurricane Maria. And then again, I give my attribution. Since I just copied and pasted this directly, I just have the word from, not the words adapted from. So when it comes to your guys' papers, just be thinking about finding a table or a figure that's going to add something significant to your argument, and then find a good paragraph where it kind of connects to those main ideas. At the end of that paragraph, include your figure or table. And again, if you don't have one in your sources right now, just please make sure you're finding one from a reliable source. Don't just, again, go from Google Images. Click back to visit that website. And let me actually show you guys how to do that. So let's say I wanted to look up student debt data. The federalreserve.gov, right? This is a part of the government that's dedicated to looking at money and sort of money issues in the country. Again, I mentioned that Statista website. So this is one that could be very helpful to you guys, statista.com. If I were to click on that, I could see, okay, it's going to be about student debt. And if I wanted to visit that site, I'd click on the link right there. And they've actually got it from the College Board there. So now I could take the information right from here. If I wanted to go to statista.com, I could just type in here, student debt. Okay, so here I can see it doesn't have a green plus, so I know this one will be able for me to read the whole thing for free. Probably consider this more of a table because it's got 2 different columns here. I could use this in my paper to talk about student debt from different universities. So again, Statista might be a really valuable research source for you guys. And again, if you run into any issues with incorporating that figure or finding a table or figure, feel free to reach out for assistance. I'm happy to provide it.